Let's pray. Lord, thank you. You're so good to us. Our blessings sometimes, we don't even see them, but they're there. You're good. You protect us. You've provided for us. We've been born in the greatest country in the world. We have the best friends here. Thank you for this group of people that make anybody feel welcome. I love that about this church. And what a testimony that is. And I pray that you bless these families that you've chosen to reach your hand in and pull family members out. And I pray, Lord, that you would just grace the hearts of these people to adjust to this new landscape in their lives. Thank you for your goodness in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, Ecclesiastes chapter number 2. Tonight, we are going to be invited into Solomon's laboratory. Chapter 2 doesn't say what a lot of us think it says. We're going to see him conduct some life experiments. Now, I want to put this picture in your mind. I don't want you to think of some guy that is just a party animal that just went nuts. That's not what this is. I want you to think of a guy with a lab coat and glasses, and he's got all kind of beakers and Bunsen burners and test tubes and all kind of different colored liquids and compounds and all this kind of stuff. And he's carefully pouring different colored and mixing, and that's what he's going to be doing. And here's what chapter 2 is about. He says, I am going to find out the thing that gives you happiness in life. So I'm looking for it. I'm going to find it. And so he's going to mix, good evening, he's going to mix several things together, and he's going to try them. And then he's going to taste it and see, no, that's not it either. It's like, WD-40? That means water dispersant. WD means water dispersant. It was developed by the military. And they were looking for a formula that would disperse water off of machinery. And nothing worked. They tried 39 different formulations. Nothing worked. Number 40 worked. And so that's water dispersant number 40. So when you see WD-40, that's what that is. Thomas Edison. Thank you, Mr. Edison. If it wasn't for Thomas Edison, we'd be watching TV in the dark. And so we've got these light bulbs now. Did you know that Thomas Edison tried 10,000 different materials for his filament until he finally found tungsten?
The good thing about it was his book was that he didn't fail. He discovered 10,000 ways of how not.
That didn't work. And that was his statement. Somebody asked him, didn't you get discouraged and tired? He said, no. Said, I found 10,000 things that didn't work. And then he finally found, and here's what was happening in chapter 2. Solomon is looking for the tungsten filament that would give brightness to his life. And it's going to be kind of sad when we walk through this. But look at verse number 1 now. I said in mine heart. Now this chapter, for the first about 11 verses, you're going to see this. Me, mine, me, mine, mine. All right, that's just going to be peppered throughout this first 11 chapters or verses. Now, I said in mine heart, go to. That means I'm going to experiment. I will prove, and that's what the word means, to test or experiment. I'm going to experiment with mirth. Therefore, enjoy pleasure. So those two are kin. And behold, this also is vanity. Well, he picks up his test tubes and his beakers, and he's shaking all this stuff together. And again, he's looking for that perfect compound that would guarantee, it's just a chemical guarantee that you're going to be happy. Wouldn't that be great? If you go to Walmart and buy a can of joy and a can of happiness, you just pop it and boom, that's the end of it. But the first port in this sea of illusion, and that's what it is that we come to, is just having a good time with a lot of money. What would you do if money was not an object? Where would you go? Where would you live? Would you quit your job? Would you put new skirting around the trailer? I heard an old gentleman one time, he won the lottery. I mean millions of dollars. And he lived in a single wide trailer. And they were interviewing him and said, what are you going to do with all of that millions of dollars? And he said, I'm going to put new skirting on my trailer. And I was like, I like that guy, you know. He's going to put new skirting. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to put new skirting on the trailer.
And then you get a lot of it. You don't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah. Y'all probably remember there's a very famous poem called Solitude that was written by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. You might not remember her name, but you remember these words. Laugh, and the world laughs with you. Weep, and you weep alone. For the sad old earth must borrow its mirth, but troubles enough of its own. Somebody turn to Proverbs 14, verse number 13. Solomon actually should have known the answer to some of his questions. We're going to find out in just a minute. David told him just before he died, Solomon lived like this. Well, Solomon didn't do that. He just ignored. Who's got 14:13?
The law of the wise is a fountain of life, to depart from the snares of death.
Okay. Is that 14:13?
No, it's 14. Sorry. It's 13.
Okay.
Even in laughter, the heart is sorrowful, and the end of that mirth is heavy.
Okay. Every time somebody laughs, they're happy, right? Not necessarily. Y'all remember Robin Williams? That was the craziest man I'd ever seen on TV. His interviews, the interviewer couldn't keep up with him. He'd just run off and leave them. And I've read interviews of people that interviewed him, and they were like, that guy'd run you out of breath. You would think he didn't have a care in the world, but he wound up hanging himself. And so, you know, not all laughter is because of joy. You remember Sarah's laughter?
Yes.
It was a mocking laugh. Somebody mispronounces a word. Somebody wears some old clothes. Somebody does something really goofy, and people laugh at them. That's not the laughter of pleasure. You know, that's just the laughter of mocking. Sometimes laughter is a cover-up for depression. Have you ever done that? If you didn't laugh, you'd cry. You know, that kind of a situation. There was a guy by the name of Tony Hancock who was a British comedian, very, very famous over there. And he had the Tony Hancock Hour, I think was the name of it. A funny guy. And he made millions of people laugh every week, every week, every week. Well, in 1968, he was in Australia and he committed suicide. And everybody was like, what? Why would he do that? Had all the money that, you know, you would ever want in life. And surely, now, if anything would make you happy, wouldn't it be laughter? You would think that people that laugh all the time, they're just so lighthearted. They don't have a care in the world. That very well might not be the case. You know, they could be covering up some very difficult things in their life. And so here's what he experimented with first. All right, he gets his little test tube, and he pours in some pleasure and some laughter and some vacation and some days off and some good times and mixes it all up, and he throws it back and just waits. He had his banquets. He had all these, you know, very elite people come, and they would laugh and enjoy life, and they would share experiences. And then when they went home at night and Solomon went to bed, he was like, geez, that didn't do it. And so that experiment failed. So look at verse number 2. I said of laughter, this is almost an oxymoron. It's mad. And of mirth, what doeth it? In other words, what's the permanent value of just having fun all the time? Would you want to just play all the time? What would you do for vacation? Go to work? And so this is, now what's he looking for? He's not looking just to have a good time. He is looking for the thing that brings permanent satisfaction and happiness in life. And so far, this one did not do it. So you can't laugh at everything, by the way. At some point, you have to face the harsh realities of life. Laughter won't wash all the dirt off. And so that just didn't work. So look at verse number 3 now. I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine. Now, he did not turn into an alcoholic. He didn't just start, drinking like crazy. He didn't do that. As a matter of fact, what he did, this was a carefully planned and executed experiment to see what results would bring him happiness or not. And so again, it's like just a little, let me see if this is going to work. He's not being out of control. None of that ever happens in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. And, most of the time when you hear about Ecclesiastes, it's about, Solomon just went nuts. He became an alcoholic and he just went crazy. Although he didn't. He was experimenting very carefully with it. He knew what he was doing. This was an experiment in intellectualism. And so he tries some wine. Lay hold on folly, till I might see what that good for the sons of men, which they do under the sun, should do under the heaven, or rather, all the days of their life. So here's what he did. He did go the party route, but it wasn't an out-of-control frat house kind of a thing. It was very controlled. He was wanting to see, now if I do this, if I can buy the best of foods, if I can eat prime rib every night, steamed broccoli, garlic mashed potatoes, the most expensive wine on earth, and if I can invite my friends, and if I can just feed them this absolutely glorious and have a banquet, and if we can maybe wine, you know how wine cheers the heart is what Scripture says. And so maybe if you drink enough, you'd get enough cheer in your heart. And he says, when the party was over, again, and everybody went home, and now I got to clean up the dishes. I was as empty as I was before it started. That didn't work. Now keep in mind that pleasure is not wrong. Okay? Fun is not wrong. It's not. When does it step over the line? When it becomes what you live for. So I love to hunt. There's nothing wrong with hunting. Now, if you don't like hunting, that's fine. I do. When would it step over the line? When that takes over my life. I love to fish. Some of you guys love to fish. Nothing wrong with fishing. But can it step over the line? Yeah. I steal God's tithe, buy a boat, and fish every Sunday. That's when it steps over the line. So there's nothing wrong with these things. They're not immoral in themselves, but they can become wrongly attached to your life. Anything can, for that matter. So, verse number 4. He's tried now just having fun. He's tried throwing some wine in the mix and having these lavish parties and just being the party master all the time. Oh, there's a party. Oh, man, Solomon knows how to throw a party now. That didn't work. So we get down to verse number 4. I made me great works. I builded me houses, plural. I planted me vineyards. He planted, now these, he got into engineering, construction. He thought, the more I build, you remember kind of like Nebuchadnezzar? Look at what I've built here. I have done this for the glory of my honor, and man, this is gorgeous. And so Solomon could look out the window and look down the street and see all the houses that he built. I did that, And when he gets through with all of his building, all these houses and all these things, he says, that still didn't work. By the way, you notice he never mentions building the temple. Mentioned all other kind of building projects because, this is under the sun now. He's trying to find that magic compound that will just automatically give you happiness in life. And so far, he hadn't found it. He said, I planted me vineyards. Now, these vineyards, this is translated, it sounds a little odd. This is a love yard. I'm not sure what all they did in the love yard. I do know this, that these were ornately designed gardens. these are really, really popular in the Orient. You know, you walk out somebody's backyard, and you've seen in England, you've seen the, you know, the mazes made out of the hedges, and just beautiful. They trim it with scissors, and they've got these ponds with the koi fish, all kind of colorful fish. They've got flowers all around the edges of it. It's the pride in Japan. This is an area of great pride. If you've got a really nice, ornate, beautifully landscaped garden, that's what he did. He built those. He put in these ponds. I'm sure they had colorful fish in these ponds. He had all kinds of trees planted in this garden. Talking about native trees. Native trees are those that are indigenous to that area, like orange trees are here. He put in native trees. He put in exotic trees, and exotics are those that are imported in, like a pineapple tree. I don't know if we have many pineapple trees in this area, but those are, you know, those would be considered, I suppose, an exotic here. And so, you know, he strolls through these gardens. How many of y'all would like to have a garden like that? I mean, just beautifully landscaped. Yeah, I find that very relaxing, just to walk through. Y'all remember Cypress Gardens? When Cypress Gardens was open, that was a beautiful place to go. Sunken Gardens, you know, yes, ma'am. You what? The natural gardens? Well, that's what we're talking about here. This is it's just an ornately designed garden. But now, look else what he did now. These trees need water. So he put in these ponds. And as a matter of fact, these ponds, there are 3. I don't know if these are the only ones that Solomon built, but about a mile and a half southwest of Jerusalem, there are the remains of 3 pools in the valley of Artus. And they were pretty good sized pools, and they at one time held water. And this is how he watered his. It was a self-contained thing. And he loved the spotlight. He loved being quoted. He loved being interviewed. He loved being photographed. You know what I'm saying? He just got off on people thinking. You know, there are people in this world that they love to be recognized when they walk down the street. You know, some of these athletes and these actors, and they just love it when people recognize them on the street. And Solomon was trying this. All right, will this do? Maybe this, if I throw in a little bit of this, and he was trying to find that perfect combination of things that would bring permanent happiness to him. Yet when the lights were turned off and everybody went home and he was sitting in the den by himself, that haunting feeling of that didn't do it. And so the next day he looks at something else. So look at verse number, let's just read 5. I made me gardens in orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. That didn't work. And then he tells us a little bit about what went on inside the house. He said, I got me servants and maidens and had servants born in my house. Now this is kind of like selective breeding cattle. He didn't import his servants. He bred his own. So he had a pretty good self-sustaining system going on here. And he says, also, I had great possessions of great and small cattle. Now, the great cattle are like cattle that we know to be cattle. The small cattle were sheep and goats. So this guy had flocks and herds, more so than anybody in the history of Jerusalem. He says, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. That didn't work. Verse number 8, I gathered me also silver and gold. You know, I mentioned to you last week that the estimate of Solomon's gold income. Now, he also had spices, and he imported monkeys. And bless you, this guy, the money was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous how much money the guy made. And he said, I made all this money. I had peculiar treasure of kings. I don't know what that means. I would say pieces of art that we couldn't buy. You know, all the most, like rugs and things that he had in his home that nobody else could afford. He had all of that. Then he had men singers and women singers. He had a staff praise team. He had a choir on staff that would entertain him and his guests. And this was their full-time job. Then there's something kind of odd. He said also had musical instruments. Now, what would you think that is? Horns and, you know, harps and all that kind of stuff. That's really not what that means. And how King James translators came up with this, I will never know. But the Hebrew word that they got musical instruments from means wife and princesses. So here's what he said. When I have these and this was a big deal. You have a banquet hall full of people. What is the one thing that you really, really, really wanted to show off? The women in your harem and the one that was considered your wife. And so he would bring these women in and introduce them, and everybody would be all impressed with these beautiful women. Now, we do know that he had a lot of women in his house. He had, 300 wives and 700 concubines, and, you know, that's a lot of mothers-in-law, man. That's just a lot of women to deal with. And Solomon, he was known for that. He wanted to be known for that thing. Verse number 9. So I was great. That means opulent, over the top. It's like the guy that lights a cigar with a $100 bill. Well, dude, get a match, you know. And, you know, there are some people that just show off with their money. You know, they wear it. They just show off. They want you to know how much money they have. Always telling you how much something costs that they have. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. In other words, I didn't lose control. I didn't lose control. I did this very much under control. I was trying to find out what works. Where's the filament that will just burn brightly and be a testimony? I finally found what makes you happy in life. Hadn't found it yet. Verse number 10. Whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. Whenever he went shopping, and his wife said, I like that. Okay, get it. Whatever he wanted. There was nothing on earth that this man couldn't afford. Most things on earth we can't afford, right? You say, well, I think money has a big mouth. And here's what it tells you. Money tells you what you can drive, doesn't it? Money tells you what you can order when you go to a restaurant. Money tells you what you can wear. Money tells you where you can live. Money tells you where you can go on vacation, doesn't it? Have you ever read the menu from right to left? I'd like to have, whoop, and when it says market price, you just keep on going, right? You know what that means, market price. Solomon didn't have to worry about that. And I can't imagine living in that world. But Solomon thought, somewhere within the opulence of my lifestyle, there is the secret, there is the ingredient that is going to make me happy. Now, look at verse number 10. Whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy. For my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked. He backs up, and he looks out the window, and he looks at his gardens, and he looks across the river, and he sees all the buildings that he built and the houses that he built, and looks in the choir room, you know, through the window, and he sees the choir practicing for the banquet tonight, and he goes in the kitchen, and he sees prime ribs all over the place getting ready to be thrown on the fire. He goes to the wine cellar, and he's got thousands of bottles of wine. I mean, he's got everything that your heart would ever desire. I looked on the works of my hands and that I had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, it was vanity. Now understand, again, these things are not useless in themselves, but what are they useless to do? Bring you total, complete joy and happiness and satisfaction in life. They won't do that. Again, there's nothing wrong with having fun and having nothing wrong with having a garden that is well manicured. There's nothing wrong with taking a nice vacation or driving a nice car. Just don't let that be the thing you think makes you happy, all right? He goes on in verse number 12. Not through yet, so he goes back in the lab. I turn myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? So we've got to answer the question, who is the king? Even that which hath been already done. Now, I spent some time hammering this on an anvil, this verse number 12. And here's what appears to be a proper translation and who this is a reference to. The king appears to be a reference to Adam. God created him, and it makes sense when you think about this. Adam was created in a perfect environment, right? He had everything that a human being would ever need. He had all the food. He had the perfect companion. That wasn't good enough. Now, if Adam can't be happy, what chance do you think we have? And so he says in verse number 12, God has already created the apex man, Adam. And all of that stuff, that should have pleased his heart to where he never wanted anything else, but there was something else that he thought he needed to have, both of them. We can be like God. We can be better than we are. So they were not happy with who they are. Verse number 13. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. It is better to be wise than ignorant, because here's what Solomon found out. If you're wise, you can see what's coming ahead. You can see, first of all, you can see death. Foolish man doesn't see that. When you're walking down the path of life, if you're wise, you can see the glass and the nails and the potholes. You can see all that stuff. And you can avoid those things. Thy word is a lamp to my feet and a light unto my path. And so a wise man avoids those things. But now look in verse number 14. The wise man's eyes are in his head. That means they're open. All right, his eyes are open, and he's watching where he's going. Now look at the fool. The fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. Wise or foolish, it doesn't matter. What is a common event to all of us? We're all going to die. That's exactly, everybody's going to die. But now here's the difference. The wise man knows it. The godly man knows it. He prepares for it. What does the fool do? He's got a blindfold on. He doesn't know it's coming. He's unaware of what's ahead of him. Now verse number 15. Then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. So what was he declaring himself not to be? A fool. Oh, said, as it happens to the fool, same thing's going to happen to me. So he's considering himself wise here because he's experimenting, and he's doing this in a controlled fashion. Now, was Solomon self-centered? Yes. Did he listen to his daddy? No, he did not. As a matter of fact, 1 Chronicles 28:9. Turn to there. 1 Chronicles 28:9. David's about to die. They're about to put Solomon on the throne. And so here's some parting words that David gives to his son. And thou, Solomon, my son, know thou the God of thy father, and serve him with a perfect heart and with a willing mind. For the Lord searcheth all the hearts and understandeth all the imaginations of the thoughts. If thou seek him, he will be found of thee. But if thou forsake him, he will cast thee off forever. Why didn't Solomon remember that? His daddy had enough wisdom to teach and to train him about these events of life Solomon still went the wrong way for quite a while, as a matter of fact. So is it a guarantee if you have a godly home that you're going to have godly kids? That's not a guarantee. So he says, verse number 15, everybody dies. And there's something else that's common to everybody. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever. Seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man? Like the fool. He dies just as dead as anybody else. And whether you were wise or foolish, people are going to forget that. And this kind of troubled Solomon, as a matter of fact. He was, if I'm wise and if I do the right thing, I'm still going to die. Well, yeah. We're not surprised when Christians die. I mean, good, godly. One of the godliest men I've ever met in my life was a gentleman by the name of Dale Faisenfeld. Dale was, he was an evangelist. He traveled with Life Action and came up to Lock Haven years ago. And I think that was the first time that I had ever experienced personal revival in my life. And Dale was a young man. He was in his early to mid-40s, developed a brain tumor, and died. And that shocked me. I was like, oh, my word. You know, what a ministry this guy had. They traveled all over the country and just doing a tremendous thing. I couldn't answer why Dale Faisenfeld died. I don't know why. That was God's will. That's the best thing I can tell you. And so verse number 16 tells us our wicked neighbors are going to die. And we're going to say, well, I understand that. I understand that. They were wicked. They were vile. Well, wait a minute. What are they going to say when we die? So we're going to experience the same thing. Verse number 16 says that there's no remembrance of either one. And how dieth the wise man? As the fool. So it says, I looked at all of this stuff, and I was just very disappointed in life. It was like life tricked him. Like life was like, hey, kid, you want some candy? Yeah. This is the best candy. Come on in here. And so Solomon just runs headlong, and life lied to him. Life gave him some things, gave him some candy, gave him a lot of stuff. And when he got through with it, it was like, that didn't do what you told me it was going to do. So he says, therefore, I hated it. It doesn't mean that there was disdain for life. It means he was disappointed and disillusioned. This is not what I thought it was going to be. Have y'all ever heard of an actor named George Sanders? You heard of Sanders? He was an very successful Oscar-winning actor, very wealthy man, was just mean. Let me read you this little biography of him. And did he? Okay. We committed suicide with all this money and everything. And listen, George Sanders was a successful Oscar-winning actor, but he was never able to enjoy his life. He'd been married 4 times, including to the actress Zsa Zsa Gabor, then to her sister Magda. He was known for his rudeness and even acknowledged it himself, saying, I am not a sweet person. I am a disagreeable person. I am a hateful person. This self-awareness did not seem to enable him to enjoy life anymore, and neither did his 7 psychiatrists. Sanders believed that he was passed over for roles that he wanted, and it just seemed to eat away at him. In 1972, at the age of 65, George Sanders downed 5 bottles of Nembutal in a hotel room in Spain. And typically for Sanders, his suicide note was not one that expressed remorse or love, but rather disdain and more than a little contempt for the whole of humanity. Here's what he left as a suicide note. Dear world, I am leaving you because I am bored. I have lived long enough. I'm leaving you with your worries in this sweet cesspool. Good luck. Award-winning, Oscar-winning actor. I'm bored. And you would think, wow, if I won an Oscar, that would just make me I would just be so fulfilled. Well, apparently that experiment did not work for Sanders, and it didn't work for Solomon either. And so, verse number 17, I hated life because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. I have worked for years. I have built, I have saved, I have traded, I have negotiated. I have this huge, huge empire. And I'm just not happy with this. And here's one reason why. Look at verse number 18. Yet I hated all my labor. So he was disappointed in life, verse 17. He is now disappointed in his labor, verse number 18. He did all this work, and then he stepped back and goes, man, that was a waste of time. He said, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun because. Now he's going to tell us why he was disappointed with all of this. I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. Whoever my heir is, this guy's going to come in and sit in my office, never having worked a day to make this money and to build these buildings and to assemble this choir and to build these gardens, never has sweat one drop of sweat to put it together. That bugs me. That bothers me. Then it further bothers him. Look at verse number 19. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? I've done all this work. Some idiot's going to come in here and spend it in 10 minutes. All of my work. He's going to let weeds grow around the pool. He's going to let scum and mold, and it's just, all the buildings are going to just fall down. All of this work. What have I done? I'm going to give it to somebody that's not going to take care of it. Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I have labored and wherein I have showed myself. This is vanity. This is stupid. This is empty. This is useless. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. It was almost like, now I'm going to make myself disappointed in this. It became another one of experiments. This is just not working. Have y'all found this, by the way? Is this just ancient literature, or have y'all found that you've worked for a long time to get a particular object or a goal or dream or whatever, and when you got it, you're like, is that all there is? Huh?
And then wears off.
It does. It does. Man, I can't wait to get this. And then you get it, and before you know it, it's on the shelf, and you're looking for something else. And I suppose the more money you have, the bigger the shelf needs to be, And I can remember when I was on staff at Ardella, Mac Chambers was a pastor, and Mac got a little cool Sony cassette recorder. It just looked good. And I was sitting in his office one day, and he showed it to me, and I said, "Man, that's pretty cool." He said, and he was kidding. He said, "Your ministry won't be complete until you have one of these." And we laughed about that, and I went out and bought one. I got one. Matter of fact, it's in my office at the house right now. And I even had my name engraved on it. James A. Harris, Galatians 2:20, my favorite verse. And, I listened to that and played tapes on it and everything, and now, you understand? Yeah, never. Well, of course, that technology is not even. I used it to record a radio program for years. And those ladies down there just get on me. I'd bring it. When are you ever going to get into the 20th century? And so, y'all probably, man, when I retire, right? When I retire, that's going to be it. And then you're going to retire, and then you're going to wish you had a job. It's just like we're always traveling. When we're at the workplace, we wish we were home. When we're home, wish we were at the workplace. We're always traveling. We're never happy where we are. Always, well, this is okay, but we'd be happier over here doing that, owning this. Well, verse number 21. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity. Now, we're talking about a wise businessman. There are business people out there that are good business people. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. Makes all his money. I read some stories today, as a matter of fact, of kids of multi-millionaires. You know, dad and mom worked for decades to build this huge business, and they leave it to the kids, and just a few years the kids are broke. It's all gone. You know, all that work gone. And so verse number 21 says there's some wise business people in the world, and they're going to leave it. This is also vanity and a great evil. And the word evil means great disaster. It is a disaster when it's gone. It could last them the rest of their life if they used it wisely, but it's gone. And, you know, all of those years of building and saving and scraping and doing without, and, you know, you save this for your heirs, your kids, your grandkids, and then mom and dad are gone. And they run in and grab the estate and boogity, you know. So verse number 22. Now we're not going to be talking about the money that he makes, but the man that makes the money. For what hath man of all his life? What happens to him? The rich man, the good businessman, the wealthy guy. What happens to him? And the vexation of his heart wherein he hath labored under the sun. What happens to that guy versus the guy that doesn't have anything? Both of them are going to die. They'll both be buried next to each other in the cemetery. So if life doesn't provide lasting happiness, there's got to be something that does. Well, there's got to be a purpose for man, right? Would you agree with that? There's got to be something that so fills the heart of man that he's like, yes, that's it. It's not that, because I've had that. But it is this. And I think y'all know where this is headed, right? All right. Verse 23, for all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. And I think today especially, man, you got income tax, inheritance tax. That's a double tax, by the way, isn't it? Now, you're a tax man. You know, your parents pay tax on all that, your grandparents or whatever, and then you inherit it. You got to pay tax on it again. And so the government always wants, y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. You know what he's worried about? You know what the rich man's worried about? Somebody stealing his riches. Somebody swindling him. Somebody hacking his account. Somebody impersonating him down at the bank. And you know, it happens. I was watching TV, and it's supposed to happen every 3 seconds. Somebody's identity is stolen. And there are more ways to steal today than there have ever been. And so this guy goes to bed at night. He can't rest, can't go to bed, he cannot sleep. He's worried about this stuff. This is vanity. This is foolishness. Lay awake at night worrying about the stuff you've collected and earned and built. That's craziness. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. Now he's getting down. He's coming to the end of the experiments. That didn't work. That didn't work. That didn't work. This didn't work. That didn't work. This didn't work. You know what I've discovered, Solomon says, after all of this? That God has designed man to enjoy the thing that he has been designed to do. That's your happiness. That's the secret. That's the ingredient. Now, yeah, it might be, I find total satisfaction in preaching. I think I would have to stoop to become a king. I am on Mount Everest right now, sitting in front of this small congregation. I'm on Mount Everest, I really am. Now, I could go make some, money doing some other stuff, but to me, that's just a waste of time for me. Now, that may be the very thing God has designed you to do, to go do that business and just make a ton of money. And I would praise the Lord for you. But that's not what God has designed me to do. And so what is the thing that makes us happy in life? The thing that God has designed you to do. Find that. Do that. And it's not a thing. It's not materialism. It's not stuff you buy or hang on the wall or put on the floor or put in the bank. None of that. None of that is the valuable stuff. And so he says there's just nothing better, that his soul should enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw. Now you remember the first 11 verses? Me, I got me, I got me, I got me. This is mine. I did this. I was great. I was rich. I was opulent. Now he says here, this is from the hand of God. Now I did all this and I wasn't happy. God gave me this. Now I'm happy. So he brings us finally to the conclusion. You know how you're happy? Find the will of God for your life. And that's what you're looking. That's what the world is looking for, folks. They don't know it. And I've said this before, and it sounds just so odd even to me, that the man that buys a prostitute is looking for God. He's looking for something to make him happy. This group of great folks, and I have just grown to love these people coming from CPM. What are they looking for? What have they been looking? They're looking for something that's going to ease the pain, give them some joy, some happiness, some satisfaction, some pleasure. Over and over and over and over and over, and it got so bad that they wound up, you know what I'm saying? And that's exactly what the retail world wants you to do. Be unhappy with what you have. Wait a minute. Brandy, you just have an iPhone 5? Don't you know there's an iPhone 10? No. Oh, the camera this thing has, you just got to have this. Okay, I'll trade it in. And you keep that one a while, and then there's another commercial. It's the 12. And it's got 2 cameras on it now.
I just got a 6, and a year later, the woman called me and said, "Are you interested in the 7?" I said, "No, I haven't learned how to use 6 yet."
Because that's what the world does. It's got a new carrot, and you eat that carrot, and of course, they've got to continually make money. I understand that. And so how do they make money? By making you unhappy with what you have. You got to move on. You got to get this. You got to get that. And so where is happiness in? Is it in that latest phone? Is it in a new car? No. Now, is there anything wrong with buying, I don't even know what the latest one is, the iPhone, whatever it is. Is there anything wrong with having a new phone? No. Is there anything wrong with having a new car? No. What's the wrong? Where is the evil in this stuff? Thinking that's what's going to bring you happiness. It won't do it, all right? Verse number 26 or 25. For who can eat, or who else can hasten, and that means chase after indulgences, more than I? In other words, saying, look, I am the lead dog. I'm the bell cow. And I'm telling you, this won't make you happy. It's not like here's a guy that is poverty-stricken saying, money won't make you happy. Well, it's because you ain't got any. You broke as Job's turkey, man. But this guy, Solomon, the absolute pinnacle of wealth, is saying, look, folks, can I save you a long trip? Don't do this. This just won't do what you're looking to do. For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight. This is the sovereignty of God. What does God give people? What he wants them to have. Wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner, he giveth travail. To gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good. So the sinner gets, he makes all this stuff. And why does does the Lord allow him to gather all that stuff? Who's going to inherit that? Well, that's going to be passed on to a godly guy. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. Just to work thinking, oh my goodness, this is what life's all about. I'm glad that you guys are wise enough, and I'm looking around here. We got some whiteheads in here. We got some folks who have been around the block. I think you're old enough to understand what Solomon has said tonight. I think you're old enough to agree with him. Now, if we went back to our teenagers, they might not have the same experience that you have. They're fighting this battle of stuff. As a matter of fact, probably we are too, if truth be known. We're still in this battle. But have you come to this understanding with we have seasoned believers in here tonight. You know for sure nothing else in this world will make you happier than being in the will of God. Have you found that? Have you discovered that? And David, the father of this guy, said in Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And what he was saying was, I shall not want another shepherd. This is it. I have found the shepherd of my soul. Nobody else can do what he does. Nobody else can provide what he provides. And he's not talking about material stuff. And I look around here. God's blessed all of us. Everybody in here is in the top 1% of the wealthiest people on earth. You say, well, somebody ought to tell my banker that then, Somebody ought to tell. And the criteria for that is pretty simple. You have multiple changes of clothing in your closets. Okay. You have more than one day's food stored at your house. You do. You have just one form of reliable transportation. Do you have a secure place to sleep tonight? You're in the top 1% of the world's wealthiest people. And some of us have more than one reliable means of transportation. We got two. Y'all have got a couple. Y'all have got a couple. A nice one, matter of fact, that new one you got. And so I think we don't know how wealthy, we don't know how blessed we are. And but I'm just really, really grateful to be an American. And I hope and pray that we don't throw this down the toilet by just absolute sinful stupidity. That's my prayer, not only for us, but that group back there. I would love for them to grow up in an America that we grew up in. Me and Dale and Sister Charlotte and Jamie and Lorraine, y'all, even, Brandy, your generation grew up in a good America, but it was starting to change, when you were a teenager. And so I think the best thing that we can do, just individually, do the right thing every day. That's the most powerful thing we can do for our country. Do the right thing every day. Thank y'all for being here tonight. I appreciate your presence, and see you Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. Yes, sir. Wow. And yeah. Yeah, that'll burn in your memory. Yeah. He really is. Yeah, Stacy tells me quite often how much food is thrown away at school. And kids don't eat, and they can't do anything with it. They just have to throw it away. She said whole trays of food.
What a shame.
Yeah, it is.
It can't just be gathered up and given to
Somebody.
somebody that needs food.
Yeah.
Well, in Lakeland, I'm sure there's some hungry people.
Hungry people want you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Solomon probably never had a concern about where he was going to get his next meal. But David spent some nights running and in the woods, and he didn't have it so nice.
Yeah, Solomon had multiple silver spoons in his mouth. He did. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate that. Brandy, you came in after we discussed this. Well, I'm going to let you know. We voted to give Aaron